Ole Mary Margaret by Bashiri J. Jones. Mary Margaret loved her cats, nice and sleek, juicy and fat. For the dark days were here, and there were no more rats. All eaten, like the birds, like the chickens, the cows, the herds. And even the swine was now divine. For the starving there are no laws. Oh, but when the change swept the earth, and the living saw the birth of things that walked in shadow, and rare fine dirt spit forth seeds of no worth, the picky soon changed the tune of their prattle. Meat, meat, the hungry they did seek. Beat, beat, the marching of their feet. First the stores, soon empty floors. Then the doors, kicking, screaming roars. Then the wars, skirmishes for apple cores. Oh, the lucky, the poor, needing soldiers, they had more. Angry youth, all claw and tooth, ghetto troops with gats to shoot. Hungry, yes, but for them, nothing new. Raised on less and making do. A recipe for an empty stew. Everyone knew Mary Margaret, the old cat lady. Her big house smelled foul, sharp-scented ammonia it did prowl, and day or night her pride was quite loud. Sitting in her window panes, watching when the children spilled from the school up the hill, watching as the people made their weary ways throughout the day. Her cats would watch, all whiskers and eyes. But now, it was we who looked inside. And it wasn't long before the question was asked, have you ever tasted cat? Big K was the toughest, the roughest, meanest man about, and smart, so smart, he made survival an art. He understood that a cat could be food, but it wouldn't be good if they ate them all through. So, with some persuasion, Big K clawed a deal. Mary Margaret would do the raisin. Big K would bring strays in. And with the flesh of those he killed, her kitties could have a meal. For the dark days were not yet so bad that cannibalism had become a fad. This new system, with cats as victims, over time began to work. Enough meat was had, both good and the bad, and both new partners proved their worth. Old Mary Margaret had a new life, a butcher and not a butcher's wife. For that she had been long ago, before the accident that took her love home. She was quick with a blade after she suffocated the strays and the ones next to eat. But a special few of her feline crew would never know slicing or watery stews. And one among them was the most cherished of all, Pixie, a tabby, a mother of fall, born in October under a crumbling gray wall. She was prodigious of litter, fertile her sweet paws, and lovely of fur like a bright silken shawl, warm to the touch and lovely to brush. Her claws never touched skin. Gentle her rub as she nuzzled your thumbs, with small little kisses with her nose and her tongue. Old Mary Margaret truly, truly only loved her, Pixie, her angel. Then one night, the night did crack, like the whip of the spine, the smack of a bat, and somewhere something broke loose. and the birds would have flown if any had still sat in their roosts. Then, silence. The morning was gray and quiet, the pressure felt before a riot, or before something goes horribly wrong. The cats were particularly silent, and all that morning and into the day, Mary Margaret questioned what was at play. But only at twilight did she notice the Tom, a black-as-night cat she stumbled upon, curled in a corner in a home it had made of an old empty box from a window display. It looked at her. It looked at her. Without any fear, eyes reaching in under her skin. The air grew cold as Mary Margaret stumbled away, and just for one moment, she thought she heard birds pray. What did they say? The moment had passed, and with a little nervous small laugh, Mary Margaret walked away. For the next 2 weeks, she avoided that corner and the jet-black Tom, her unwanted boarder. For it was unwanted. An alien intrusion, bringing fear and dreams, nightly confusion, into Mary Margaret's poor widowed heart. Where had he come from? Had he arrived in the night? Or was he a stray Big K had grabbed on first sight? She didn't know. But this she did. Of its presence she would like to be rid. Then it was gone, like the last heard remnants of a dwindling song that had tortured the ears and had lasted too long. Old Mary Margaret sighed her relief, and in just a few days was back selling meat. Normalcy returned to her large crumbling abode, but things began to change for the worse as the winters grew cold. Pixie was pregnant. Of course, Pixie being pregnant was not a new thing, just a cog in the wheels of a feline butcher machine. Yet, this time things were different. Things were not normal. For Mary Margaret could sense the approaching of turmoil. Pixie, once warm, once so loving, acted very odd as the litter was coming. For now, she shied from all human touch, and cried when brushed, and her little wet kisses came not as often, not nearly as much. On his monthly visit, Big K could feel something was ill. Mary Margaret was rather generous with this week's part of the deal. Her eyes kept shifting to something in back, to some cluttered room where her possessions were stacked. But Big K was not known for his heart, so he held in his questions before compassion could start, and walked out her door to get back to his art. 2 months passed, and in the house of old Mary Margaret sadness it sat, and fear and pain and unwanted tears, for Pixie was late and no litter appeared. Her most precious cat lay sallow and fat, unable to move, a knot caught in the loom. Each day a debate. What should I do? Open her up? No, that will not do. I am no vet, no doctor, it's true, but I must do something, or my Pixie, my heart, will be through. Sadly, Mary Margaret could not decide as she watched her precious love slowly grow fatter, destined to die. Why? Mary Margaret, she wailed and she cried. It was that Tom, that alien thing, that foreign intruder who brought her this pain. Some messenger of doom that had sat in a box in the corner of a room she knew she kept locked. Now she remembered. That was the room. She had sealed a tomb, a reminder of her life before her days turned to stark gloom. Was it a trick that Big K had played? Taking advantage at some vulnerable point? Introducing that stray? But Mary Margaret saw no wisdom in that, for her partner to risk the road they had mapped. Then, in the deepest day of winter, amongst the frost and the splinters of old fallen trees with futures of cinders, old Mary Margaret was a shadow of self, her steps dragging a weak picture of health. Wheezing and winded she moved through that day. From room to room, a ghost she portrayed. Her cats gave her wide berth, she the matron of felines who gave them their worth. In the corner where Pixie Fat sat, a weak, weary picture beginning to crack, a shape most unrecognizable as cat. Now a tumorous mass that writhed in wet pain, and under its body a growing foul stain. Mary Margaret finally decided, Tomorrow, I will send Pixie home. Tomorrow, I also shall go. In the next room that night, old Mary Margaret kept watch, in an old beaten chair by a weary old clock. She would not sleep. She would not. But she was old Mary Margaret, not the younger or spry. So it was with good intentions that she still closed her eyes. Mary Margaret awoke suddenly. No! The air was cold. Too cold she felt on her skin. The house was quiet. Too quiet of any cat din. Slowly she turned her poor tortured gaze to the room where her sweet Pixie had last laid. A pool of shadows greeted her eyes. Signs of movement her eyes did not spy. Pixie? Silence, she called again. Pixie? But still no sound from her friend. She should rise, she should run, quick to see what had become of her dear. But something froze her, something other than fear. Some encroaching force held her quick to that chair. Behind her, a noise. A creeping, clicking implored. Turn. She suddenly yearned. Creeping and clicking, now a gurgling breath. Hissing and pulsing, something had crept. Old Mary Margaret frozen in dread, hands digging and clawing at the stitches and threads. A movement she caught in the corner of eye, a stirring of air as it moved to her side. Her eyes snapped shut, as if fleeing a dream. Her lips pressed tight, holding back screams. Then, a tentative touch of a small little paw, and the piercing of flesh from the sharpest of claws. Her body shook as the claws clawed up her leg. One at a time, slowly it came. A cold, heavy weight. On her heat she could feel that it fed, clicking and creeping. Mary Margaret was weeping, gone the thinking of any more sleeping, and choking on fear, to silence she fled. It sat on her legs. It sat on her chest, each little claw leaving small dots of red. A long hairless tail she could feel encircled her legs, tight as a snake, yet slimy and wet. And in her face, a fetid breath breathed, kissing her lips and making her see. Old Mary Margaret opened her eyes, forced to return to the dream and its churning dark tide. She gazed upon it, and that left her no choice. She screamed a mad scream, giving dread to her voice. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Someone is going to die, was what Big K thought as he opened his eyes. It was late in the night, and someone was brave, waking him up, banging his gate. After exclamations and humble decrees, he found himself out in the night's sullen peace. To Ole Mary Margaret's he slowly was led, and he knew by the silence some blood had been shed. Guided he was through the broken front door his goons had breached when they heard a dread note. A scream, a scream, they all kept repeating, like it was a prayer to some god they entreated. In a room on the first floor, Big K entered to discover true horror. Old Mary Margaret was now Mary Margaret the dead, eyes wide open, lamps to some dread. The scream on her face frozen to bone, a prey to something unknown. Covered all over in red running dots, like a balloon repeatedly popped by a fine little needle that never knew thread, just old lady skin and old lady flesh. In the patterns of dust that lay on the floor lay many small prints of many small paws. But instead of 4 or 5 digits were the scratches of 3 claws, which gave Big K a reason to pause. Tricking the eye, one could see the tracks of many, but one, just one, created this frenzy. Small footsteps of brown that turned into red, as Mary Margaret's favorite pixie was found dead. It was like she had been skinned from inside to out. All that remained was some fur and her snout. Big K recoiled, this scene it disturbed every inch of his being, even down to his nerves. Still reeling and rolling from what he had seen, Big K finally noticed a missing part of the scene. The cats. Not a trace, not a sound, not even a glance. Not even their eyes that shined in the game of stop and advance. Once there were many, purring and moving, watching and waiting, under the foot, quicker to scoot, preening and pressing, touching and testing. Now there was none, used to be tons. A chilling, stronger hand, all in his mind, touched Big K, his skin and his spine. Big K, the artist, knew it was time to retire. Striking a match, he fed her house to fire, to all that had been there, to all that transpired. Old Mary Margaret loved her cats, nice and sleek, juicy and fat. For the dark days are here. Where are the rats? Eaten all by a great black cat.